All right, man. Today is Tuesday. It's August 1st. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. Here with Chief as always. And we're going to bring you another Pick 6 because it kind of feels like one of those weeks or a couple weeks where a lot of things have been happening.
I had 4 blogs on Saturday just because so much shit was happening.
Yeah.
So it was just like, I wasn't really doing much. So I just sat there and just got my fingers working.
Yeah, lots going on. We haven't done one of these, I feel like, in a couple months. But if you're unfamiliar, basically we pick 6 topics that are going on in the world or in the United States. And we put a spin on it for 5 to 7 minutes, and then we move it on. So it's kind of like a rapid fire car wash here. Today we're going to get into SBF. We're going to get into Mitch McConnell freezing. Aliens being purported as real, finally, kind of, sort of.
Kind of, sort of.
The Hollywood strike, new details on Epstein, and Twitter being switched to X. So a lot going on. Needless to say.
Yeah.
Before we get into any of it, though, I do want to talk about MUGSY jeans, the most comfortable jeans, chinos, shorts, and joggers ever. They're made from buttery, soft, patented stretch materials that look stylish but are insanely comfortable, never too baggy, never too tight. We're a big proponents of MUGSY jeans.
Huge. I actually am due to head over there. So they have that store in Armitage. Helps to try things on. Once you get them, they're great. We were talking simple pleasures yesterday. We mentioned like a football nap. There's been many days where I just have the Mugsies on in the fall in the morning and then you just sit on the couch and then you fall asleep in them. You wake up, you go out to the bar. You never get out of your Mugsies.
Yeah, they're that comfortable. They also drop the Cool Max denim. That's like air conditioners on your legs. They spent years in the lab developing these most breathable jeans ever. And they're designed with lightweight fibers to ensure a cool breeze with every single step. So you can go from the backyard barbecue to the bar in one swift motion all summer long. August, obviously, we just flipped the calendar, but a lot of time left here, so go grab those shorts, chinos, or jeans. If you head to MUGSY.com and you get 10% off using code Chicago. It's 10% off with some of the most premium jeans, chinos, swimwear, and shorts on the internet. MUGSY also offers free shipping and returns, so there's absolutely no risk giving them a try. If you're in Chicago, Boston, D.C., or Austin, Texas, make sure you head down and check out their storefront as well. Easy vibes every time. Enjoy a beer while you shop.
They had nice beers in there, too.
They do.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yep.
All right, topic number 1. Let's set that timer, and let's talk about SBF.
I feel like you love this guy.
I love him.
You're intrigued by the story and like the whole thing, which it is. Like he's got like the island where they're all just like these polyamorous people, these nerds that are just fucking all the time and stealing everybody's money. And the latest update is that the DOJ decided to drop some of the fraud related to like the campaign finance element of it. So shocking. Really. So he's still getting brought up on like, I think it's like 7 other charges, but the DOJ was like, we have a treaty with the Bahamas and that's why we can't pursue it because when they extradited him, it wasn't one of the charges listed, but it's all just a bunch of bullshit. This is where I get like fired up about political stuff, start to feel like Dante a little bit because this is a guy, he gave $90 million in campaign contributions to 300 different recipients. He was the second largest donor in the world to the Democratic Party, with the exception of George Soros. They just came up with some bullshit excuse so that they don't have to pursue that specific charge. So then they don't have to like open up all the dirty laundry of all these politicians, because there was like this push, because basically he was using customer money. Because it was all just like moving money around. It was all just like a Ponzi scheme, which is effectively what he's getting charged with, this fraud. So he was getting real dollars in, and then using those money from customers on campaign contributions for these other people to kill legislation that was going to be for, they called it a stable coin, so you wouldn't have like these wild falls. It's actually kind of ironic that the bill that was proposed, that he basically got killed through, bribery essentially for campaign contributions, probably would have saved his whole business, because he would have had to he wouldn't have been able to do this like kind of slow this Ponzi scheme, because he would have had to have had real assets attached to it, and that's the thing that ultimately killed him. But the fact that it's like the one thing that would like link the politicians to him directly, they're like, let's not pursue that one. Like fucking hell.
It is kind of important to distinguish, though, because I think when this all went down last week, many people, and I was one of them, you instantly hear like, they're not bringing him up on charges. You think like he was totally out of the woods. which is not the case.
He's still facing 7 different charges, but it's like it is like the Justice Department just being like in the pocket of Congress or who knows who else being like, yeah, like, why don't we just say we don't have enough merit to go on that one? Because there was when that charge initially came, there was like this push, and some politicians and some people gave the money back. Like, hey, like that was fraudulent money. We should, we didn't know, so we shouldn't have accepted that. We're not going to use it. And other ones were like, we don't know. We don't know where that money is. Like, that's our money that was donated to us, and like they just kept it. So people don't want to have like the books opened on they don't want emails and things like that, and Discovery found out about their relation with SBF specifically, and they also don't want to face this public pressure to give large sums of money back that they got basically through fraudulent terms. And this kind of goes back to
they should. I mean, we did the Madoff one. Is that what you were gonna say?
Yeah, to the people. Well, but this is like, oh well, I used it. I spent it on fucking billboards and staffing and all these things to get myself reelected, so we can pass this bill for Sam Bankman-Fried. Like, they just don't want like their communications probably open to Discovery in this case, so they dropped that charge, and he'll still do jail time probably for the other things. But this specific thing that could get politicians in hot water in one way or another, they're like, yeah, we're not going to pursue that, because they're on the other end of it. So they're only pursuing like the financial fraud stuff as opposed to the campaign fraud stuff. But this is, to me, this is like a larger discussion, because I don't, you could talk about George Soros. Now, I don't know a lot about George Soros. I feel like he's like one of those names that's like a boogeyman, but I don't know what he does necessarily. I know he's like a trader or whatever, but it doesn't feel, this doesn't, like the Sam Bankman-Fried stuff doesn't feel that different than any other Wall Street firm to me, and they passed that. There was a Supreme Court case in 2010 that basically it was Citizens United against the Federal Election Commission, and it was centered around this video with somebody made a movie about Hillary, and there was a previous election thing that said basically, hey, within 60 days you can't be like trying to spend money to swing an election. Okay, so they were going to put out this movie that was during the Democratic primary between Obama and Hillary in 2008, and it basically went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, you know what, that's against free speech, because you can't, corporations and whoever's spending money, they're just effectively individuals, and they basically said corporate donors can donate all, and influence all the way up to election day, and their dollars are the equivalent of speech. So that really kind of changed the landscape, and that's when you start to see these super PACs come up, and they're not supposed to be able to have direct communication with the said candidate or whatever. But if Sam Bankman-Fried is doing this, where he's like, hey, like, I don't want this stable coin legislation passed, and if I help you get elected, it's like a quid pro quo. It's a quid pro quo, where they're not supposed to be able to like influence public policy based on donations, but that happens all the time, and it's not just him, and it's like, that's something that should really be looked at again. So that passed 5-4 back in 2010, and it feels like there's more money in politics than ever before, and it just kind of gets me all fired up. And I hate the fact that this is the one thing of all his charges that could make the politicians themselves, the government officials themselves, look bad. They drop those charges. Like, it's fucked up.
Yeah, but unsurprising to say the least.
But I'm tired of that, though. I'm tired of it. Like, well, this is just what they do, so unsurprising. So whatever. What are you going to do about it? Like, there should be like more public pressure on.
What's the saying? How do you govern the government?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Who watches the watcher? Well, that's yeah. Well, that's like the whole idea, where it's like, why? That's why they have that language, like, under God, because everybody is supposedly at the end of the day subservient to an ideal, whatever that ideal is. It's just like there's something above the government. Now it feels like there's nothing above the government.
Oh, yeah.
And whether you believe in God or not, it doesn't really matter. You should be like, everyone has like a moral ethic that they should, like the government themselves should be like, no, I'm going to do the right thing.
Yeah.
But they don't do the right thing.
Yeah.
And that's probably why we end up with our next story, where you have these people who are just in public office for fucking ever. And it's so getting embarrassing and bad.
This story was kind of tailored off the whole Mitch McConnell freezing at the press conference.
Frozen.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Harry can slide that in to the episode or not, but he's giving a speech to the press. He's up on his podium, and he stops like mid-sentence, and then eventually is like, hey, his assistant or aide is like, hey, Mitch, do you have anything else you want to say to the media? And he just like kind of looks like around. And then they take him kind of by the arm and usher him away from the podium. But like it made no sense.
I mean, I think they were convinced at the moment that he was having a medical event.
Well, he did fall earlier this year. And he hit his head, and it was supposedly like a bad fall and a bad injury. And he said he's fine, that he was just lightheaded. I mean, he was like the definition of lights are on but nobody's home.
Yeah,
and it was scary to see. And it's like this is, and then I think it was like the next day, Dianne Feinstein had like a, not to that degree, but Dianne Feinstein, she's from California. She's 90. She's been in office my entire life at least. I think she going back maybe into the late 70s. She's so old that she's had 2 husbands die.
Wow.
Okay, so she was married and then divorced in like 1959. She married the husband Feinstein. He died in like 78. She gets remarried, and that guy died of like basically old age, like I think a year or 2 ago. So like you got to be pretty old to have husbands just dropping dead. And they were doing a vote, and she, like, even though she's been in that position, let's call it 40, 50 years, she forgot how to vote. And she had like her assistant just like say aye. Like you're voting yes. And she just kept like rambling on. It's like, how the fuck do you forget like this process? You've done it like 1,000 fucking times. And so that was just like another brain thing. Biden seemingly has those all the time. So Mitch McConnell's 81. Dianne Feinstein's 90. Biden's 80. Nancy Pelosi's 83. Bernie Sanders is 81. There's the I think he's a senator from Iowa, Charles Grassley, 89. Our own Dick Durbin's 78. Maxine Waters, another California representative, is 84. So I mean, and like there's more, but it's just like you have all of these old people. Like, how are they supposed to be expected to govern effectively? They make pilots retire at 67 because it's a risk, because they're worried about cognitive decline. So
what do you agree with that age, or what do you think what would be
for 67?
What do you think would be an appropriate age?
It's hard because I think when I see Bernie Sanders speak at 81, he looks a lot sharper to me than Biden at the same age.
Yeah.
So it's hard to be like, there's got to be like a catch. Maybe it should just be like 78 though.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I do think we've talked about this before, but maybe you expand Congress to the population ratio that existed when the House was created. Because now it's like if you do it by the numbers, it should be like thousands of people in the House of Representatives if you kept the ratio the same as it was originally intended. And then you got to have term limits too. Like Dianne Feinstein shouldn't be able to serve for 50 years. Mitch McConnell's been there for, another guy's been there for seemingly my entire life.
You know, this is a thing though. Maybe at some point it gets ratified, but as soon as it is ratified, there's going to be someone who's fucking awesome for this country, and we're going to be sad to see them like age out when they're like still in good
I wonder
health.
If there's like a way,
because the crazy thing is too, where the world does feel like it is kind of catching up to the degree of old ain't that old anymore, you know?
Totally.
But these guys are part of the old age. They
70's
are
the new 50.
Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? But they're not part of that, though, I feel.
No.
Like this new...
It's almost like you need a test.
Yeah.
You know, like if you have a cognitive decline test for a driver's license or for a pilot's license. Although the pilot's license, it is forced retirement at 67, and they just upped it like a month ago from 65.
That's all. I think fireman has that too.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure there's many professions.
Yeah.
So it's like,
That's
how do you come up with a test that measures cognitive ability in a fair way, you know? And like, what's the baseline? And maybe it's like, hey, you got elected at 50. We're going to give you a baseline test now.
Yeah.
And because some people are just dumber or smarter than others.
You can't have humans aside, because then that would be the most
scammed
thing.
Yeah.
The most
that's
corrupt thing. And
it would be the most corrupt thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know what the way out is, other than just like, hey, you can only serve, I don't know, 2 terms. The Senate terms are 6 years, so it's like you can serve for 12 years.
Yeah. However, it's a larger discussion. I know this is just being brought up because he froze. But I would like to say, like, I think everyone's been there.
Not like that.
Most people have been
there.
there.
But like I've never been there. I've had my brain freeze. I've had it happen on this show many times.
Yeah.
But then it
happened to me on the Mitch show like 2 weeks ago. Remember that?
Yeah. But then we're like, fuck, my brain froze.
Yeah. Like I acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't acknowledge it.
Right. He couldn't get a word out. It was like and I'm not saying this like flippantly. It looked like he was having a stroke.
Yeah.
And so, but there has to be some sort of way to, like, we just can't have these people where they get up there and like they don't even like when they remember like where they have like the social media and the tech company like hearings and things like that, and you're just like, bro, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, and you're going to be the one that's voting on this and writing legislation, and it's no wonder. And it's like, so, you know, I feel like when you talk about like John Adams and people like that who went to Congress and the Senate originally, they were private citizens who were like, I'm going to go serve, and then I'm going to go back to being a farmer or a lawyer or whatever. I feel like the idea of being a career politician is newer because there's so much more money in it, because they're all the best stock traders in the world too, because they're doing corrupt things with that. Yeah. So you get the money out of politics, you get these old people out, and then you stop them from just having this influence where they're able to just make millions and millions of dollars being better traders than Warren Buffett.
I think maybe a good rule of thumb is if you've owned a mail file at one point in your life,
you're out.
It's time to go.
You're out. Okay. I don't hate that. You know what I mean? I don't hate that.
Well, you got like 10 more years, because I guess like our parents had them too, but like
probably, yeah.
But like our parents are aging out too, anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
you know what I mean?
Like, totally. And it's also like the internet moves so fast. Like I feel like our generation, maybe not, maybe it's just the people I'm around, are a little bit more skeptical of the government than my parents. You know, where it was just like you think back to, I've been re-listening to this podcast that I love, Blowback. They're going through the Iraq War and the lead up to that. And it's just like, how the fuck did everybody just, like in the New York Times, like ignore all of these and just get in line?
Yeah.
Like everybody just, it was like, wait a second. And I guess people are still just kind of root for their own teams. That's why I think I would get rid of political parties too. I would have no political parties, and you just have to.
I don't hate that.
You because then it's like, this is what my team does and says. It's like, no, I agree with that guy on X, Y, and Z, and you can vote on things kind of a la carte instead of having a party line.
That's a huge issue.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Next topic, we're going to get into aliens, but before we do, I want to talk about BOWLERO for a moment. One of our favorites, Chief. BOWLERO.
I love BOWLERO.
The world's largest owner and operator of bowling centers. Of course, they got great lanes, but they also have expansive arcades. They got premium signature cocktails and a creative menu. Their locations are the perfect spots for a night out, whether you're celebrating a birthday, feeling competitive, or just want to have a good time. BOWLERO is the go-to destination for an unforgettable and bold experience. Don't feel like leaving your house, though? Tune in for the Barstool BOWLERO Invitational Finale on August 9th. That will be streaming live on YouTube. Watch, we'll be there. We just got the email today. So we'll be there. Big Cat, Hank, and more compete for the Ultimate Championship title. Join in on the fun with a trip to the lanes. Enjoy bowling, good food and drinks, and a guaranteed spot on the lanes when you reserve online. Visit BOWLERO.com using promo code BARSTOOL for 15% off your next reservation. This offer is only valid through August 31st, so if you're looking to do some bowling in August, definitely go use that promo code.
I feel like I could get good at bowling. I'd like to get good at bowling.
I got my own ball. I was in a league last year, so I'm excited to bring my own ball.
All right, that's kind of a flex.
Well, I mean, it was actually a great deal. It was you join the league and they give you a ball at the end.
Okay.
So it was nice.
And then what'd you get on it? Anything?
No,
just standard black ball.
It has a scent. Bowling balls have scents now, I guess. Yeah.
What would you pick?
Mine smells like a like a pop, like a sucker.
Like a lollipop?
Yeah, like a lollipop.
Okay.
It's kind of nice.
Interesting.
It's kind of nice. It was that or like blueberry muffin.
Ooh, I would have gone with the muffin.
Yeah. Well, the ball I liked was the different brand.
You didn't have like the rose inside it, like.
No, I have a rose ball though in the dog walk studio.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Aliens, everyone's favorite topic, man.
Yeah, and this is one where I felt like they had a mix where if you like, because they had it was a congressional hearing, right? And they went to this old lady at one point. I'm like, this lady. I looked her up. She was 83 years old too. It's like, what the fuck? Like she was probably there when Roswell crashed, and she's been there ever since. But anyway, so this to me, like, look, I would say I was a little bit disappointed. But not necessarily surprised that we didn't have like, here's a picture of a fucking alien. But they interviewed David Grush, who was the high-ranking intelligence officer, former Air Force guy, who he did an interview where he was like, yeah, like we have all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then it was the two fighter pilots, David Fravor and Graves, who have both been on Rogan. And obviously the difference is now they're saying all these things under oath in front of Congress, because you lie under oath, you go to jail. So you can't just bullshit about these different things about aliens and just try to make headlines or get fame or whatever, because the penalty for that is jail time. So the stakes are a little bit higher. You know, people weren't going to lie about that. So I had 5 main takeaways. Okay. Grush said that we have bodies of UFO pilots, called them biologics. So somewhere it's like they have, I'm just picturing like that Independence Day scene where they come in that lab underneath the mountain and they have like just aliens sitting in formaldehyde and like those big like kind of fish tank looking things. Like the fact that somewhere we have fucking alien out of this world bodies just somewhere in our country and have for years is crazy to me. Like, how do you it begs the question, how do you keep something like that secret for so long? Okay. And that was like another takeaway. They asked, has the U.S. government ever threatened or potentially murdered somebody to keep this story quiet? And the guy's like, well, I have to be careful what I say. There's an ongoing whistleblower. He's like, I've been personally threatened. I've been personally injured, but the way he used injured didn't imply physical violence, at least the way that I interpreted it. But, and then they were like, the congressman was like, has someone been murdered? He's like, well, I have reported things like that to the appropriate authorities. So I was like, the government's fucking murdering people over alien stories. That's fucking crazy. And that's why it's like, you talk about Bob Lazar, where he's like, they ruined my entire life and they like stole my identity, where it's like, yeah, he never went to MIT. He never worked for any of these. They just like erased him as a human being for what he was leaking, but he was too public of a figure for them to just fucking straight up murder him. Saying that under oath is bananas to me, because it's just like, yeah, the government murders its citizens for certain things. Kind of crazy. Kind of crazy. But like, again, one of those things where it's like, you're not totally shocked, but it is so like jarring to hear that said under oath to your elected representatives. He also said that humans have been harmed by aliens themselves. So like, talk about like being probed and abducted and having like, brain injuries and things like that. Aliens are doing some damage themselves.
That's got to be the worst thing that could happen. Can you imagine those fuckers coming down? They take you in, and your thought process going through all of that, and then knowing that even if you got back and they didn't like murder you,
you're never the same.
You're never the same.
Yeah.
No one ever believes you.
Nope.
If you say anything to anyone, you're a fucking weirdo.
Yeah, exactly. I've never met anyone. I remember there was this guy, Dennis Kucinich, who was he ran for president. He was like I think he was either a congressman or a senator from Ohio, and he was running as a Democrat. And he has been on the record that he has seen a UFO, and he was like, I don't know how legit of a candidate he was, but he was on the stage. He was like top 8 or whatever. And the moderator asked him, "You ever seen a UFO?" And he's like, "Yeah, actually, I have." And it was like, this guy's fucking crazy. Get him out of here. But now it's like, we've had these things here for forever. So they like ruined that guy's political career because he said he saw a UFO one time. Now I think he's actually working for RFK now in some capacity.
Really?
Yeah. The David Fravor said that these are a threat to national security because he's, the speculation and the word is that it's not just the United States that are recovering these craft, that they're crashing and, they're finding these things all over the place. So if you're in a race again, and he was one who had he saw the Tic Tac off of the coast of California. And he's like, if someone's able to reverse engineer that, we are beyond fucked. He's like, they can go to space and go to the surface of the ocean and do it like that and stop in midair. And they described like these other ones that are like literally in a hurricane, just standing still. Like they can't be moved by hurricane force winds. Totally just not impacted at all.
Damn.
Crazy. And so he's like, if somebody can figure out that technology, it's definitely, forget about the aliens themselves, but another government, another country being able to reverse engineer that tech that shoots them to like they can just take over the world in a second.
Well, how about we get the tech?
Would be nice. Get some people working on that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, they also said things like, there are like basically defense contractors so that are working on this too, like top secret. And it's like, well, where's the money for this? And it's like, because it just goes into this secret budget for, hundreds of billions of dollars that they don't have to necessarily itemize. So it's like, oh, what was that? What was that? $7 billion, making up numbers, $7 billion for it. Don't worry about it. But it's for the fucking alien project. Yeah. Okay. That's fucking crazy. And then when you had Graves, the other pilot, describing, and I hadn't heard this. I had listened to his podcast on Rogan. I don't know if I fell asleep or it was just not paying attention. And if he said it on there, he said that the UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to call them, that he saw were a clear sphere with a dark gray or black cube on the inside with the points touching all the points of the cube touching the edges of the sphere. So you just have like a flying ball and a black cube on it. It's like, that's not like your Hollywood UFO flying saucer. It's just a flying cube. Mm-hmm. That was like, and then he was like, I think one of the congressmen was like, is that like an aerodynamic? He's like, no, it's like the least aerodynamic. He's like, think of, like they're not aerodynamic at all. Like we can't explain how they fly or the technology. It makes no sense. And there's like no heat pattern, no propulsion, no anything. They just zip around. And it's like the idea, for some reason, like the shape of the UFO being a sphere with a cube on the inside, that scared the hell out of me. That's like, you can't even dream up something like that.
No. But we did know, right, that it was going to be not what we expected.
I didn't know that because I was familiar with all the names that were testifying. And I am really hoping, and that was another thing, that Grush was like, I can't say, he said this a bunch of times to different questions, and he's like, I can't say that in open session, but if we can get into a secure, they call it a SCIF, I can provide you with a list of names and contractors and government, like naming names of people involved in these projects. I'm hoping that this is just like chapter 1. Okay. And then who knows? And like
get into it.
Congress investigates further. They have another one where they're calling some of these like, hey, like you were named in this report by Grush. So now we're going to question you under oath. What do you know? And just try to unravel this thing all the way to the end. Yeah. All
right, then coming back to Earth, the Hollywood writers' strike.
Yeah, because who's going to write about this shit? How am I going to be entertained by this?
I don't know.
Because that's ultimately all I care about is myself.
The heels seem dug in very strongly.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like bickering and this was like another. We're talking about the Hollywood writer strike and the actor strike. Did you know the president of SAG is Fran Drescher?
No.
Yeah.
No.
The Nanny. You remember that show, The Nanny?
Oh yeah.
Like the most obnoxious voice in the world, like that New York accent. She's the president of.
Hell yeah, good for Fran Drescher.
Good for Fran Drescher, yeah. But imagine I feel like that's how you win. You sit her down against these like streaming execs. You're like, we can't listen to this woman anymore. Like that voice can't do it. But this is the first strike. You know who else had that job at one point?
Who?
Ronald Reagan.
Oh no shit.
He had it. I want to say it was in the 50s, like before he became governor of California. He was president of the Screen Actors Guild. So maybe she'll be president someday. Anyways, so this is the first strike like this in 40 years where the actors and the writers are both striking at the same time. We've had a writer strike before. I think we've had an actor strike before, but having them both be at the same time is the first time in 40 years. And basically, it's everyone's like, not everyone, but I think, and maybe some people are under the impression that this is about like George Clooney and Brad Pitt. Like it's not. The stat that I saw showed that 87% of people in the Screen Actors Guild are making under $30,000 a year, which not great. Tough way to live. And then it's really like the streaming has just changed the game like completely, where, you know, it used to be the if you're in syndication, if you're on Friends or like any kind of hit show, your residuals and your pay were like through the fucking roof. Like I think there was like something where NBC had offered Jerry Seinfeld like, I think it was like $50 million to do one more season. And he was like, no, it might've been $100 million. And then like there's Big Bang Theory and Friends and all these kind of sitcoms. Everybody on the show is getting $1 million an episode. It's just not the case. So there's, you know, I haven't seen the show, but these are like the two most viral examples where the Orange is the New Black on Netflix. It's like one of Netflix's like.
It was one of their first big shows. Like that and House of Cards, I think.
Yeah, I think
those felt like the two first ones.
Yeah, and House of Cards, that was like an interesting story because that was just like an algorithm thing. Back then, it was like people respond well to Kevin Spacey. Probably not anymore, although I think he was acquitted.
He was.
But I don't know the details of that case. But people back then, they were like, we know people like Kevin Spacey as a leading man. We know that they like British shows as a form, and there was like some other thing. So they like a computer basically like came up with like the premise for that show, and I bet you Spacey got paid because he's like an A-list type guy, or was at that point. But Orange is the New Black is not that. It's like a bunch of kind of no-name people, and they said like one of the main stars of the show talked about how he never quit his day job because he's like, my day job paid better. Like Orange is the New Black was never going to pay me the right way. Then they had this other writer who said that, you know, they showed a residual check and went kind of viral online, I think a couple of years ago, for like a network TV show. Residual check was $12,000. Residual check for streaming show $4. Okay, so like big disparity. And then one of the stars of Orange is the New Black, same thing. Like showed her residual check, and it's like itemized. Like I don't know how they do it, but she like showed the whole check, a whole pay stub, and it was $27.30. So it's like, and that's supposedly like one of their major shows. Like even I know about it, even though I haven't seen it, but I know it's like supposedly like a very popular show, and they're just like, this is like an untenable situation. So they're trying to strike for better compensation, and the streaming services obviously don't want to pay, but there's speculation that one of the reasons that they don't want to pay is because then we'd need White Sox Dave in here to come in here and be like, open the books, like his Jerry Reinsdorf line, open the books of the MLB owners. Well, the streaming services
don't want you to know.
They don't want you to know what the actual viewership is, because it might not be fucking much, and it might not be what they've been reporting to their shareholders. So if you're having a performance-based, because that's one of the things they're asking for, is a performance-based bonus. So if you're on Orange is the New Black, or I'm trying to think, or Peaky Blinders doesn't really count for that.
Stranger Things,
perfect example. Yeah, so one of those types of shows, or you know, or if the Amazon Marvelous Miss Maisel, or one of these things that's like a big show that originated on a streaming platform, that they want performance-based bonuses, and that where it's like almost kind of like how they have TV ratings, but there is no like standardized TV ratings for streaming, and they all kind of keep those like in a black box. They never release who's doing what or who's watching what. It's all just kind of guesswork. And if they release it, then it might just come back, be like, yeah, the viewership's actually not what we said. So then the stock crashes. So then there's so much TV now that I feel like there's probably more actors working than ever. They're just not getting paid, but there's more shows.
That's what it feels like.
Than ever across, between cable and all the different platforms and movies and HBO Max and all this shit. It just feels like there's so many options.
I do wonder how they're getting along with this, because they have a rating system, and then they obviously know how many people are watching it on Max, Whereas like Hulu, Netflix are straight to
that's a good point. Yeah, but Max has some shows, I believe, and movies that are just straight to Max. But they're in both camps though, for sure. Like if Righteous Gemstones, like
they're getting a rating,
right,
and they're also getting viewers on people who just have Max.
So I wonder if they're like the Packers or the Braves, like the canary in the coal mine situation, where it's like, could you come up with a model based on what HBO Max is and what HBO and HBO Max are reporting to extrapolate that out to these other ones? I don't know. It's interesting though. And so they're trying to be like, so that's where it's like, for me, like, I don't know what the solution is for this on this. Like, is it better to be living in an era where you'll have more opportunities to work and have a breakthrough, but get paid less? Or have it be like, hey, there's 7 channels on cable that are doing new content, and if you don't get one of those shows, then you're just kind of fucked.
Yeah, it's a good argument.
I don't know, because I could see a situation where it's like, hey, like, we open everything up, okay, the stock price goes down, we have less of a budget to throw darts at the wall with new shows, and so we're actually just putting less content out there. So then the consumer is probably like, well, why am I paying what is Netflix now? I don't even know, $15?
Something like that.
Why am I paying $15 a month? There's like not even any shows on there that I like. So then their subscriber base goes down. So then there's even less money. Like or I could be way off on that. I really don't know, but I feel like there's arguments for both sides on that. But it is tough when it's like I feel like the gap between.
There's got to be a way.
There's got to be some kind of middle ground.
Yeah, for sure. Because that's the thing, though, and it's the same thing with Sirius and these companies. They come in and they change the game, and they're privately held.
Yep.
And they could kind of hold all their cars.
Yeah. Or they're publicly held too. Like Netflix is a publicly traded entity. Disney is a publicly traded entity, obviously.
But they report their subscribers.
Right. They don't report their viewership, which is different. Mm-hmm. But that's also kind of how cable does have the rating system. But like, you don't have if I don't watch, I don't know, the CW, which I don't, I'm still paying for the CW as part of my cable bundle. Like, there's no a la carte. Like, so it's like Netflix is almost like, hey, like, maybe the model changes where it's like, you're going to have Netflix where it's like all the documentary bullshit shows that I watch. And then there's Netflix Premium, and you have to choose between 7 and 15, which one do you want? I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there because I really don't know what the solution is. The thing that I do think is absolute fucking bullshit is this AI angle. Have you heard about this?
Oh, how they're going to get AI to start writing the shows and whatnot?
Well, there is that aspect of it.
Oh, and didn't they just have a job posting for like $600,000?
$900,000. So Netflix, and it was like a AI project manager for like script writing for Netflix, which I don't know what an AI project manager should make. It's a big number. I don't really care about that. The thing that caught my attention was that they want to have the production companies. They want to be able to have an actor come in theoretically as an extra, read a bunch of lines, work for a day, and then they would own that person's image and likeness for eternity. So you could be like, hey, like, you read this script, you didn't get the part, or you worked one day, but you read all these lines, and we captured that, and now we can recreate your face.
That's like the first episode of Black Mirror this season.
So I haven't seen it, but it was. But that is the premise, and that's the thing that they're like actually arguing out. and then like they never have to pay you ever again for stealing your face and your work. So that, like legit, that's something I feel like that people should be protected against. And also, like, I don't know if someone blogged it on Barstool. AI is like just creating like these absolute smoke show influencers, but they're just like completely fake girls. They're just hot girls they're completely fake, auto-generated. I don't know if they can take that same thing and put that out into like have them move and things like that, like for to be an actress on a series. Like I don't know that.
Yeah, what's that?
But it's also like, I wonder if you would just like, because I looked at that blog naturally, and there is where it's like, that's a little too perfect. Like, it's like you almost just want to like tear it down, because it's like, what the fuck is this? Like, you just tell that it's just like a little bit off.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get into our next topic. Before we do, though, I want to talk about Miller Lite, because it's easy to feel nostalgic in the summertime, especially when you've got a beer in your hand, but not just any beer. Miller Lite is the 96-calorie beer that tastes like beer and is perfectly brewed for a bonfire story or memories in the making. Whether you're spending long afternoons behind the grill, waiting out a rainstorm at your favorite bar, or telling old stories to the soundtrack of a crackling bonfire, those summer moments with Miller Lite mean more. Because when it's summertime, it tastes like Miller Lite. It tastes like Miller time, of course. Miller time is when you and your friends can get together to enjoy the simple things in life, crack open a white can, and let the great taste of Miller Lite hit your taste buds so hard you feel it in your heart.
Yeah, I did that Monday night. I got one of my good buddies, a big Cincinnati fan. I went to the ballpark before he came over, cracked a few Miller Lights. Beautiful weather. You're just like, that's what it's all about. Like, just go to the ballpark, have a few Miller Lights, have a great time, and soak up these last days of summer.
Yeah, that I went to my sister's block party this past weekend. First cooler, there's like 4 coolers laid out. Water, all right, no. Pop, no. Next one was like seltzers. Then I opened the next one, and it was just a full cooler of Miller Lite.
It's a beautiful sight.
And I'm like, this is my cooler. I'm going to drag it over by me. So make unforgettable summer memories with Miller Lite. Get Miller Lite delivered right to your door. Visit MillerLite.com/redline. Or let's be honest, you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Just make sure you celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. All right, so seems like we have new wrinkles in the Epstein case.
This is a story that I hope never goes away, and it is popping up more and more. So you had this, and this is so fucking disturbing, this next part, so apologies in advance. But Epstein was connected to this guy Leon Black, and Leon Black, he ran a investment firm called it was Apollo. Okay, and somewhere there are records that show, like documented records, that over a 5-year period, Leon Black was paying Epstein. He paid him $158 million. $158 million. And this is a guy who, multi-billion-dollar company manages, billions of dollars of assets. He's paying Epstein $158 billion for quote-unquote tax advice. And of course, Apollo did like an internal investigation. They found no wrongdoing. Well, now he's being sued personally for the 3rd time for an alleged rape that took place at Epstein's Manhattan property. So, and it gets worse, because not only was the girl underage, she also had Down syndrome, like a rare form of Down syndrome. So she was her lawyers are arguing that she had developmentally had the mind of it, and still does, the mind of a 12-year-old. So it's like, what in the actual fuck? Like how this doesn't like stop the world to be like, we're every single email you've ever written, phone records, all your phone pings, like it was Serial, where they like you're able to pop where your phone was. Okay, you were at that place when this was, like, this should just be happening all the time. And it's like $158 million for tax. Like, no, he's got you by the fucking balls. And this is the 3rd case where the 3rd time he's been sued for something similar to this. And it was just like he's just a guy that, he's a bad guy who Epstein got, and because there was supposedly he had cameras everywhere and log books and the whole thing. So it's like, this is the most fucked up thing you've ever heard. And so it's like that story just won't go away. And then you had about a month ago, for the second time, JP Morgan Chase, they settled with some of Epstein's victims for $290 million, and so that was paid out. I think that was paid out in June. Didn't really get that much attention, okay, as far as like what I think my standard for what that story should be getting. And then you have maybe a week or so ago, the U.S. Virgin Islands are suing JP Morgan Chase, basically being like, you guys knew and like it damaged our country or our people. They're suing them for $190 million. And it said the bank ignored red flags that should have prompted action by JP Morgan. And there's like all these emails that are coming out there, like these rambling, weird emails from Epstein where he's like naming Bill Gates, and he's like, I'm making all these introductions, and I should be, we should be doing this. We should need $100 million for Gates for this other foundation, but it'll be about things that you like. And all these different things are just coming out kind of through discovery, through these different lawsuits. And then there's like this other one, okay, where it's like, because people at Chase Bank are like, we didn't really know, okay. Well, then there was this email that comes out where it's like top people at JP Morgan Chase were like kind of joking about, is Miley Cyrus with Epstein? Well, at the time, that email was from like 2011, I believe, when Miley Cyrus was 15. So it's like they're basically like joking about how an underage girl is with Epstein. So it's like, so you didn't know anything?
There were probably
right.
There was something.
At least suspicion, if not outright knowledge. And it's like, you guys fucking knew and just didn't care, basically, is how that looks and how that reads. And it's just like, but it's like all the most powerful people in the world. So it doesn't really ever get unearthed and investigated the way it should. But it's super fucked up. And it's I hope it just keeps going kind of forever, because until like the full truth comes out, because we were talking about that in that case in 2019, and then he was murdered. He was murdered in his prison cell. So it's not going away, but it's also not like the number one headline either when stuff like this happens, because $290 million to JP Morgan is like, it might be on the top of the Daily Mail for like 15 minutes until the next thing comes out, and then no one talks about it ever again. So, but it should. It should. No,
you're right about that. It's kind of crazy, because people are definitely interested, and like I said to you, it's not both sides of the aisle. I feel is like
everybody
obviously is ever. How can you not be fucking vehemently against this?
Yeah. It's not even a political issue.
No, it's not.
Same thing with like, I don't know, much lower stakes in many regards, but like the term limits and the corrupt politicians, where it's like, people always talk about Nancy Pelosi has made all this money. There's like, it's like everybody though. It's like everybody they're like the best traders in the world. They're all in Congress because they're doing what Martha Stewart did, and they made an example out of her, and she went to jail. But they're all using inside information to make these trades or influence policy that they know, hey, like if we vote for this stock will go up, and nobody goes to jail.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how could, that's not a left-right thing, because everybody on both sides is guilty, but it's just like some people need to, and it's like, it's easy for me to like wag my finger as I'm sitting here in this fucking podcast studio, but it's like every time that you abdicate your own responsibility as a citizen, and you're like, whatever, then that's how this happens. So it's like everybody needs to be like paying attention more and caring more and maybe being involved more, because otherwise you just let like the worst of the worst just have an easy run into office and do whatever the fuck they want and get away with everything.
Yeah. All right, then. Last topic here. It appears that Twitter is officially dead.
It's dead.
This X thing actually happened.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was serious. He says crap like this all the time.
Yeah.
On Twitter, like, oh, if I lose this poll, I'm going to give up my CEO spot. I'm going to make this X.
Well, I think he did hire somebody, didn't he?
I don't know. I don't know whatever happened after that.
Yeah.
He's definitely still.
He's calling all the shots.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Crazy. Like, the bird is dead.
The bird is dead. I liked the bird. I thought the bird was a good logo.
Nothing wrong with the bird.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, though. I don't like that people act like Twitter wasn't extremely dysfunctional before Elon took over.
It's crazy.
That's revisionist history.
Yeah.
Like, they never made money. Their stock was always...
They were never profitable.
No.
Not even once.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So, like, Jack Dorsey and his posse, whatever.
The posse was bad.
Yeah, they conceptualized a great product and something that took off.
Mm-hmm.
But it was almost like they were like Barstool. They had, like, all the ideas guys, but they had no one to, like...
run the show.
Like, run the fucking nuts and bolts of the P&L,
Right. Yeah, and that's why they were always losing money, but it was like their user base was so big. But then it's like, well, how big was the user base? Because there was a shit ton of bots. So it's like hard to even know who's a real user. And it could be one person with theoretically 1,000 accounts tied to one person at a fucking bot farm. But that counts as like your user. So it's like an important tool.
Surprised that some of these...
I love Twitter. I'm always going to call it
X.
Twitter. Yeah.
How many X's did you do today?
I've done...
Yeah.
I was going to start saying Zeets.
Yeah. Oh, all right.
But
I'll give you a re-X on that.
React. Okay. A rezeet?
Yeah. You know what's surprising? We just talked about streaming, so I want to get back to this. But at one point, do they make a free version of it? Because if all they care about is their subscriber base,
a free version of what?
Like Netflix. And then that's where, someone's, botted up, makes some message boards. Like, they could really scum that thing up a little bit. And if that's the way that Twitter really got ahead, which is bullshit, I don't know, it just had my brain going. Could you imagine that?
Well, here's like another question I've always had. So they say that, I want to say it's like 30, I'm directionally correct on this, but it's like 38% of all web traffic is porn. That's what they say.
And what is like Pornhub's like the most popular website?
Right, but isn't that free? Who pays for that? Is there a subscription version of that? I don't think so. Maybe, but like they have to be making money somehow.
Yeah.
So maybe that so
that is crazy.
Could you do a content site that is operate? Well, YouTube is kind of like that, I guess. YouTube is a streaming service. Now they have YouTube TV and all that, but there's endless content on YouTube of documentaries and stuff like that I fucking live on. Or even just like all these different versions of people watching this right now. It's just free. You have to sit through a maybe 15-second ad at the beginning. Yeah. And most of the time you get to skip after 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So is that a model where it's like, hey, like we're moving Netflix to a different version? And I wonder, I've been watching that show, I Think You Should Leave. Mm-hmm. Chaps and Feidelberg, like they basically shamed me into watching because I hadn't heard of it. It's fucking hilarious. That show could be profitable, I would assume, on Netflix. Or I'm sorry, on YouTube. On YouTube.
But yeah, that's what a lot of those comics are doing, right?
So yeah, they're releasing a special on YouTube.
Yeah.
But it's like I heard, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Shane Gillis, where he was like, yeah, like you put it on YouTube in the hopes that Netflix like gives you a check. And then the guy, your favorite guy, Andrew Scholes, pulled his from Netflix so he could control the content himself and just made everybody kind of buy tickets. And I think who's the other guy that did that? I can picture his face.
That put it all on YouTube?
No, that he sold it through his own website.
Louis did it.
Louis, that's what. And I saw him at Chicago Theater, actually.
Yeah.
Saw that special. But so maybe that is kind of the wave of the future, where if it's like, we're not doing the Netflix model anymore, like you can buy our show a la carte.
I do wonder what the difference is between exposure. Like, yeah, I think Gillis's special killed it on YouTube. I think it
Yeah.
had millions and millions of views. And but like you'd assume it would probably get millions and people would stumble upon it on Netflix too, maybe. I don't know. Maybe not the same sphere, because if you like are into comedy shows, you probably get that overlap somehow if you didn't know Shane.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't know. Like, we're on YouTube now. We used to be on Sirius.
Yeah.
I did feel like we hit some new people when we were on Sirius too, and it's
Just
kind of
flipping through the channels.
yeah, it's kind of like a similar trajectory.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably, you know, when we get the new office, it's going to be doing live stuff all the time, where it's like, where I feel like Sirius, it's like, hey, like I'm going to tune in for Barstool Breakfast on my commute, and I'm just going to leave it on the. Hey, I really like these guys, so I'm going to seek out more of their stuff.
Yeah,
and I think that could be part of the model. But I wonder, using that same show as an example, that I think you should leave. I wonder if it's like, hey, we got picked up by Netflix. We're gonna do our first 2 seasons. So let's say it's 16 episodes or 12 episodes or whatever. Season 3, you can watch the whole thing on ithinkyousshouldleave.com for $1 an episode.
Yeah.
You know,
Who knows?
could that be, and is that a more viable business
Option?
model for them?
I love that this is the X topic.
Yes. You never know where it's going to lead.
I know.
Yeah.
X.
But I mean, he's
X, just talking about it sucks.
and yeah, it does.
X
But he's
topic.
doing X videos, he said.
X videos is porn.
Yeah, but
Or the Vin Diesel movie.
yeah, but Elon said that he wants X to be fucking PayPal and Twitter and Instagram.
We'll see. I mean, he's definitely got a
video
vision.
content. Yeah.
We'll see.
Sounds like his video content or his vision is just like, I want to have one place for everything that exists in the world. Which just seems like a lot.
Yeah.
So
Smarter than I am.
yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. All right then, Chief. Thank you. Thank you everybody for listening. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with a free swim. We will see you all then.